Well, back in the day when I began my professional life, I was an experimental psychologist, and I had rats who worked for me and ran all the experiments. Well, it was a prime sin then to anthropomorphize the experience of animals who were not human. Well, it had a certain logic. For instance, we humans secrete a hormone called oxytocin. This hormone supports our emotional attachment to our babies and our empathy, and it releases the spurt of milk from a mother's breast. On the other hand, poisonous snakes also produce oxytocin, but instead of letting down milk, oxytocin releases their venom through their fangs when they attack their prey. I doubt these snakes are feeling empathy. But neither can we deny meaning and intention in the patterns of behavior that we see in other species. Do you have a dog? Or have you ever owned a dog? When we live intimately with them, we get it. Why they wag their tails or set back their ears, although we lack tails. And we have a different way of looking scared or mad. Dogs get it when we are ready to play or to give them a good rub behind the ears. Well, today, I want to talk about two other species, both of them mammals. They live hugely different lives on different continents. Some deeply thoughtful and committed researchers have devoted themselves to really seeing these animals in their own worlds, day after day, all day over years. I'm going to be talking about elephants and about wolves in the wild. I believe they have lessons for us. This is not about how elephants or wolves resemble us. It's about who they are. And yet, in my heart, I do pray we may live better, act better as a human animal if we can learn from who they are and how they live. Well, first, the story of elephants, the largest of all land animals. A researcher named Cynthia Moss spent 40 years living near and watching herds of elephants in Kenya's Amboseli National Park, near Mount Kilimanjaro in Africa. I've drawn these stories from her accounts and those of her colleagues. It turns out elephants have to learn everything about being elephants from the other elephants who protect them, from the day they're born until the day they die. A newborn enters the world at about 200 pounds. The mom weighs about 8,000 pounds, and males can weigh twice that, about 16,000 pounds. They do need to eat a lot, but they're vegetarians. The leader of a herd of animals, of elephant animals, was a matriarch named Deborah. Yes, elephants do live in matriarchal societies. Well, Deborah was an experienced mom by the time she was 47 years old. Cynthia Moss, the staff member, watched Deborah's newest baby as he fell down 5 times in the very first half hour of his life. Each time, Deborah carefully got him up by putting her foot gently beneath him and steadying him with her trunk. It took an hour and a half till the baby found her nipples, while Deborah stood quietly with her leg well forward so her newborn could nurse. For months, babies stick close to their mother, and the mother hums to the infant constantly, as if she were saying, "Here I am, I'm right here, I'm right here." Baby elephants wobble and fall and trip on roots, and they give out a loud, squeaky cry. And all the young females in the herd rush over to make sure that that baby is okay. Once, a baby elephant fell into a steep-sided water hole and couldn't get out. The mother and an aunt started digging out one side of the water hole and made a ramp for the baby to climb up and save that baby's life. No child gets left behind. The matriarch leading the herd sets the pace to make sure that the young and also the disabled can keep up and get rest. They may walk 40 or 50 miles a day for water or to eat the grasses that they like. The elephants work together to save any others who get trapped, for instance, in a muddy riverbank. They cooperate to raise up an injured or a fallen elephant. One elephant was seen plucking up some grass and placing it in the mouth of another whose trunk had been badly injured. Sometimes elephants have helped people. A local herdsman got into an accidental confrontation with an elephant matriarch, and his leg was broken. When that matriarch realized that this man couldn't walk, she used her trunk and her front feet to move him gently over to a nearby tree and propped him up in its shade. She stood guard over him all night until his villagers came to find and help him. It's the matriarch of the herd who leads by personality, by example, and decides where they will go. She stands at the edge of her group, facing in the direction she wants to travel, and she rumbles and waits till they join her. She'll team up with other herds that they're close to. Sometimes they meet up at a marshy river edge, for example, with a couple of hundred other elephants, and they bathe and romp and play together, and they know and they remember each other. Well, I've talked mostly about matriarchs rather than the male elephants. Well, males in the herd are followers rather than leaders, despite their enormous size. They do make babies, though. Males come into must once a year and act bossy for a few days, and the females prefer contact with males in must. What's curious, though, is that each male of the herd comes into must at a different time, so they don't compete or fight with each other for a female who's in estrus. Males reach about age 30 before their first must and sexual experience. Females, on the other hand, come into estrus about age 11. Their pregnancy lasts 2 years, and they nurse their babies for 2 years. So they come into estrus every 4 years. Family planning. Males may not be leaders, but they too teach the young. They like to play games, pretending they're facing an enemy, say, perhaps a lion, and they show the babies how they run and thrash the grass to beat off that threat. So, don't elephants ever make trouble? Yeah, sure. Mom is ready to wean her baby, but he wants more milk. She moves her foreleg back to block him from her breast. One baby got really mad about being weaned. He poked and stuck his tusks into his mother. Then he turned around and kicked her. And then he stuck his trunk into her anus, and she just moved away. Another adult elephant was upset and angry with another in the herd. The matriarch stepped in between them and stood head to head with the aggrieved elephant. She rumbled and raised her head and lifted her ears and reached her trunk towards the other one, and there was reconciliation. Deepest of all, elephants grieve. It matters who has died, and they know their loss. The elephant lifespan's about 60 to 70 years. After a death, the herd comes in silence and investigates the body. They bury their dead beneath branches and leaves. They may cover the wound of a corpse with a layer of mud. They recognize the bones of one who's died and care for that body. Depending on their personal relationship, they eat less, they sleep less, they're listless or agitated. When an infant dies, the mother sometimes carries that dead baby on her tusks for several days, something she would never do with a healthy infant. How do they do all that they do? Well, besides body language, they rumble. Their voices span 10 octaves, although much of their voice range is below our human threshold for hearing. Elephants can hear each other's rumbles over distances of several miles. And they have more than 100 ritual gestures to communicate with each other in different contexts. If we were talking about people, we would choose words like compassion and wisdom and forbearance and playfulness and the skills to live in peace. They live in right relationship with themselves and their world, but they're just doing what elephants do. I know I've never measured up to the way these incredible creatures live their lives. I'm more hopeful that maybe I could be more like a good wolf. Okay, the story of wolves. Again, a devoted researcher, a career ranger in Yellowstone National Park named Rick McIntyre, followed wolves for 15 years in all seasons, all day by sight and by electronic signals from the research collars that some of the wolves wore. Well, wolves don't get high ratings in the press or in fairy tales. They live in small packs that are typically closely related families, usually a breeding pair and their pups. They can compete fiercely to the death with another pack, and sometimes with an individual they want to force out of their own pack. Wolves kill other wolves. Wolves will devour the pups of other wolf packs. Wolves kill other species of animals for food. The two most common causes of wolf death are, number one, getting killed by humans, and number two, getting killed by other wolves. Their lifespan in the wild is about 7 years. In captivity, their lifespan's 15 years. It's tough to be a wolf and live in the wild. The wolves in this story, they were introduced into Yellowstone from Canada 70 years after the last wolves had grown extinct. They were brought into Yellowstone because the elk population, a wolf's favorite meal, had grown so numerous and out of control that the elk were starving and destroying the vegetation of the park. For wolves, close family loyalty tops the list. Leaders of the pack, often called the alpha male and the alpha female, depend on their children to help defend the den, to hunt, to hold their territory, and to fend off rivals. Older pups help care for the younger ones. Eventually, though, adolescents leave their pack and start their own families, or sometimes they're adopted into new families where they meet a need. Wolves divide their labor for survival. Most other animal predators go after prey that's smaller than they are. Wolves go after animals that may be 5 to 10 times their weight. Female wolves weigh about 90 to 110 pounds. They travel faster than the males, who weigh about 120 to 130 pounds. So it's the females and their pups who start the hunt. They catch up with an elk. And this is a hard story, but they bite its legs and haunches to slow it down. Then a big male wolf rushes in, speeds past his young and the elk. Then he turns and lunges up to bite the elk's throat for a kill. Only 2 or 3 of the wolf pack ever do that actual kill. Hunting's teamwork. Not pretty. But then the whole family gets to eat and sleep and live and feed their pups. Wolves can carry about 20 pounds of meat in their stomachs back to the den where they regurgitate the meat to feed the pups. A wolf will risk and sometimes sacrifice his own life to save its pups or another pack member by acting as a decoy to distract an enemy. They can do favors for a wolf they like and return the favors they've received, and they can also plan revenge. When a pack gathers after some absence, they press together, body to body, wag their tails and lick each other's faces. The young pups defer to their elders the way a domestic dog greets its human keeper. They bow their heads and lower their bodies. But as adults, they become the captains of their own lives. There's one wolf whose story I'll always hold in my heart. He was a perfect wolf, and he was perfect in deeper ways. This wolf was never given a name, just a number. He was number 21. The park ranger, Rick McIntyre, tracked him nearly every day of his life. Number 21 was a fearless defender of his family. The ranger once watched as number 21 took on 6 attacking wolves and routed every one of them. Rick wrote in his notes, "Watching him felt like seeing something supernatural. I'd be thinking, a wolf can't do what I'm watching this wolf do. What's even more special about number 21, he never lost a fight, and he never killed the opponent he defeated. Well, there's a bit of backstory about number 21. When he was 2.5 years old, he left his mother and his birth pack. 2 days later, he joined another pack whose head male, alpha male, had just been shot to death illegally. The females welcomed him as their alpha male. The pups loved him, and instead of killing them, he immediately adopted the pups and he fed them. Once he'd made a kill, he'd walk away and lie down for a nap while the rest of the family would come and do their eating. And one of number 21's favorite sports was to wrestle with the little pups. He'd pretend to lose and let some baby wolf jump up on him and bite his fur, and the triumphant little one would be standing over him with his tail wagging. So, number 1 could pretend and teach the young. Pups learned the confidence they would need every day of their hunting lives, how it felt to conquer something much bigger than themselves. Well, number 21 impregnated 3 females in his new pack, and of those 3 litters, 30 pups survived. At that point, Alpha Wolf 21 had 37 wolves in his pack, the largest family of wolves that's ever been recorded. Only Wolf 21 had what it took to lead a pack that large. He defended their territory, and he never lost a fight, and he never killed a vanquished wolf. The park ranger thinks of number 21 as a Muhammad Ali who never lost a boxing match, but refused to go to war in Vietnam to kill other people. On a day in June, when Wolf 21 was 9 years old, he was lying down with his family when an elk came by. The other wolves jumped up to give chase. He jumped up too, but he just watched the action. Then he lay down again. Later, when the rest of the pack headed up toward their home den, Wolf 21 instead traveled across the valley in the opposite direction, alone. When Rick McIntyre heard there was a dead wolf up in the hills, he rode up on horseback to investigate. That last day, it seems, number 21 knew his time had come. He used the last of his energy to make it up to the very top of a high mountain, a place he'd always known. Amid high summer grass and mountain wildflowers, Wolf 21 curled up in the shade of a large tree, and on his own terms, he went to sleep for the last time. So, what may we learn for our own lives from these incredibly powerful creatures? Well, both of whose numbers are dwindling due to poaching and human encroachment. By seeing them in their own worlds, we've begun to understand their communication that's so vital for their survival, yet seems so different from our own. Our new understandings that cross the boundaries of species tell us something transcendent about our Earth. Like most people, elephants and wolves care for their young and teach them what they need for their lives. And elephants and wolves are terrific at teamwork, but in the service of very different motives. Elephants work together to help even another species. Wolves take on more of that first-rate teamwork we see in our military. We humans work together well in wars to conquer and kill other members of our species. Elephants have ways to settle grievances and bring about reconciliation. Except for that mysterious alpha wolf 21, wolves will attack and kill each other and the puppies of another pack. Herds of elephants can gather in peace with hundreds of others from different herds. Wolves mostly keep the peace within their small, closely related packs. Well, we humans, we have a lot of trouble accepting and living in peace with each other. Death dealing goes on in so many spheres of life. We're the most powerful species on Earth, yet we can't stop killing each other. I doubt our prayers could make us more like elephants, but it's the story of that Alpha Wolf 21 of Yellowstone that gives me hope. Wolf 21 surpassed all the others in strength and power, and yet there was a quality within him that transcended what we could call wolf culture. He could vanquish, but he would never kill another wolf. He nurtured all the wolves in his pack. If he were a human warrior, we'd speak of mercy, of kindness, of a magnanimous spirit. When 21 set out alone to the top of the mountain, amidst grass and wildflowers, for his final sleep, I have to believe that something of him was drawn forever into the spirit of life and love that permeates this universe. So, this is my prayer. Though we shall not escape our own dangerous natures, yet we may strive to learn from this alpha wolf. We can transcend our culture of violence and vengeance and save each other. We can become better animals. Namaste.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This congregation depends entirely upon the generosity of its members and friends. All that we give in time, talent, and treasure is what sustains this community and makes it not just a sanctuary for us to return to for spiritual nourishment, but an oasis from which we can go out into the world carrying the waters of life. People at home can donate by going to our website at nvuu.org and clicking on the yellow donate button on the left-hand side, or mail a check to NVUU at 1625 Salvador Avenue, Napa, California, 94558. The offering will now be gratefully received.